Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Excited to be here with Sara. We've just had a big discussion about Sarah or Sara. Sara Willman from My Flower Patch. And we're doing another live podcast recording. So this is only number 2 that we've done live. So it's still a bit of an experiment. So thank you to those of you who are watching live. If you are, just say hello in the chat box. It's always nice to know that people are here and people are interacting and coming along. And I don't know if any of you made it to the podcast I did with Livy last week. So what we'll do is I'll tell you this bit now about being a live podcast, and then we'll sort of start the podcast recording official. And then at the end, I'll say a kind of pretend goodbye to Sara, and then we'll have time at the end if anybody's got any questions or anything they want to ask her. So, if you can hear a bit of background noise, it's my children playing on their iPads, keeping quiet theoretically whilst I do this. Sara's really lucky; hers is back at school for the next week or two. So. I'm not at all jealous. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Guilt, mother's guilt.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, do feel free to use that chat box to chat to each other, to comment, to say hello. Just let us know that you're watching. And as I say, if there's any specific questions you've got, pop them in the Ask a Question box, and we can run through them with Sara at the end. So if you're sitting comfortably, Sara, we will get going. Are you all right?
Yep.
Don't look so. You look really terrified. Don't be. We're just having a chat with a cup of tea. It's fine.
That's just my normal face.
I generally look. I remember my youngest it must have been at least the first 9 months was just like this, like everything. And I sometimes feel like I'm like that, especially at the moment. Brilliant.
The lockdown look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you look much more chic and put together than I do, I have to say.
That's another story. I'll tell you off camera.
I'll tell you what's on the bottom. Brilliant. Right, I'm going to leave a little pause that just makes my editing a bit easier, and then I'm going to crack on and say hello. Hello, Sara. Welcome so much to the Sustainable-ish podcast.
Hello. Thanks.
Really, yeah. I mean, this is a bit of a different topic for us, and it came about because I posted a picture of some flowers that my husband had bought me. I've just submitted my second manuscript, the manuscript of my second book, and he sort of very lovelily, that's not even a word, very nicely bought me some flowers to say congratulations. And I always feel really sorry for him because it's so difficult, I think, to buy cut flowers for somebody who's sort of a bit eco, because, if you get them wrapped in plastic, or there's imported from wherever, and there's all these different issues, and the poor bloke's just trying to be nice and just buy his wife a bunch of flowers, and I'm like, thank you, and kind of like cringing inside.
All right, by the end of this, I'll have solved all your problems with that. Amazing. So that's what I wanted to chat to you about today. So can you start off by introducing yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do. So hi, I'm Sara Willman, and I run My Flower Patch. It's based in Uphaven in Wiltshire, and it's a small flower growing patch of land, which is why it's called My Flower Patch. It's separate from my house. It's not my garden. I rent a small patch of land to grow flowers on. I broke ground 10 years ago in May, which has flown by, and it started as a little bit of an accident, actually. It was a sort of sideline to having an allotment. I chose too many flower seeds to have on the allotment because I didn't want to just grow veg for what was then my husband and I, and ended up getting all of these flower seeds come, and the allotment had quite strict rules about how much proportion you were allowed veg versus flowers. So I spoke to a friend and said, can I have a bit of your land to grow flowers on? He looked at me as if I was a bit crazy. I offered to pay. He said, of course. So 10 years ago, I broke ground, and I've been growing ever since. It didn't really start off as a business. I spent probably at least the first year just growing and trialing and testing vase life and learning and finding out about varieties. But it's been a business pretty much since then, in between having my child as well, who's now 9. So yeah, mostly business from then on.
What was your background? Were you trained as a florist? Are you a trained gardener? No?
My background. Right. So I've got a degree in medical biochemistry.
Wow.
Then I went and did a teacher training degree and got a PGCE. Then I taught for 3 years in primary school.
Wow.
Then I did pharmaceutical representative. Then I was a business development manager for a sexual health company. Then I did some independent sexual health training, teaching people how to use condoms. So that was great fun. And then I just started growing flowers for fun. So no, I have no formal horticultural training or formal floristry training. I've done loads of self-learning and gone on lots of courses, but and I've grown since I was a tiny child. I always grew with my nan. I used to help her in her garden. So I've always grown, and I've always loved plants and flowers.
Yeah.
But no formal certificated training for anything that I'm doing at the moment.
Oh, but I love that though. I think, you know, sometimes we don't do things because we feel like we need a qualification or we need to be an expert in something. And, you know, I always say whenever I'm asked to speak, or I say it in the forward of my book, look, I'm not an environmental scientist. I'm not an expert. I'm just, you know, I'm the same as you, kind of muddling along, trying to work it out. But there's something to be said for that, I think, for just that real on the ground learning, and that really kind of what works and what doesn't.
Well, originally I was intending to grow enough flowers for myself, and that was about it. And then plants are very, very generous, so I ended up with far too many plants, far too many flowers, and used to give them away. And I just asked people to have a look at them, and then that's sort of where the idea came from, that it could become a business.
Yeah. And was it last week or the week before? It was British Flower Week.
I can't remember how many weeks ago. The time's gone completely different when it's lockdown, hasn't it? It's like one day can last a month.
Yeah.
It was finished on the 20th or 21st of June or something like that. So yeah, that's been
first British Flower Week, or is it something that's been going for quite a while?
That's been running since 2013.
Wow.
It's organised by Covent Garden Flower Market. They're also involved with the Garden Museum now very heavily. Normally it's a live event, and last year they got a lot of coverage. I think it was last year they got a lot of coverage from BBC Breakfast. They were there every morning, which was absolutely brilliant. It was real prime time info for British flowers. This year, obviously, it was a slightly different event, all virtual. But actually what that does mean is all of the stuff is still on the website now. So you can go and have a look at British Flowers Week. I don't know, .co.uk or something.
Right,
if you literally just Google British Flowers Week, it will come up. There's an introduction from the Duchess of Cornwall this year. And she's a patron for one of the Floral Angels, one of the charities involved with florists. And it's a lovely way of showcasing British flowers, but there's lots that you can go and look at and find out about British flowers on the website.
Yeah. And in the time that you've been growing, so in these 10 years, have you seen a growth in sort of awareness and interest in British blooms and British flowers?
Yeah, very much so. I'm a member of an organisation called Flowers from the Farm. When I joined, I can't actually remember when I joined, but when I joined there were about 100 and something members. We've now got over 800 members. I'm one of the regional coordinators for it, and we have members dotted all over the UK. So those are just people who are growing British flowers, or florists who are working predominantly with British flowers. And most of those are being run as a business or just starting to think about being a business. So that's a growth in itself, just of the number of people involved with businesses associated with British flowers. But I've definitely seen more people wanting to use me because I have British grown flowers. So I use British grown all year round. When I can't grow them, I buy from other growers or larger growers that are available for wholesale growers. But yeah, I'm British all year round.
And why, this might feel like a really obvious question to you, but why is it important that we support the British flower industry, or that we buy British blooms?
So we have the power to make quite significant choices with our money. Flowers are a luxury product. we don't need them to survive, although a lot of people would say we need them for our mental health.
Yeah.
And definitely during lockdown, I've had a lot of bouquets that I've been making to deliver that have had very, very poignant messages on, and definitely increasing people's happiness and sending messages of love when they can't visit. And one person sent a hug in a vase because they couldn't be with that person. So lovely messages. So in that respect, yes, they're not an essential item, but they are quite important, I'd say, for our mental health. There's varying figures. I did do a little bit of research for you. So there's varying figures. They vary from about sort of 86% up to 90% of the flowers used in the UK are imported.
Wow.
And it's something like £2 billion that we spend in the UK. I might have got that wrong.
Annually?
Yeah.
Wow.
On flowers and cut ornamental plants. And if you think sort of nearly 90% of that is imported to us. Most of them come through the Dutch auctions in Holland, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were grown in Holland. They'll come from places like Ethiopia. Significant numbers now directly are flown in from Kenya, Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, sort of all sorts of those places, all over the world, basically. Those will have to be flown in.
As I say, they need to be air freighted because of the shelf life of a cut flower.
They'll be air freighted, usually in a refrigerated option of
so
air
double
freight.
whammy,
A little bit, and also some of those countries are not necessarily using the same chemicals that we would use in the UK. Some places are not as well regulated. Some are getting much better, but some are not as well regulated. So if you're thinking that you're importing a luxury item with all the associated aspects of that, then it's a little bit... there's been some research done by Coventry University, a lady called, I'll have to check, Lancaster University, sorry, Rebecca Swin, and she's done some research comparing a Dutch bouquet with a Kenyan bouquet with a British bouquet.
Wow, yeah.
And a Dutch or Kenyan bouquet is almost equivalent in carbon footprint to an economy flight from London to Paris.
No way.
I know. And I had no idea about that until I knew it before I was researching for this, but I had to just make sure I had it written down to say.
And is that like a 20 quid bouquet, a 50 quid bouquet?
They did say it was 5 roses, 3 lilies and 3 stems of gypsophila, which actually isn't a big luxury bouquet. That's kind of like a supermarket. It's not the basic supermarket, but it's kind of not even the most amazing, beautiful, big bouquet. So that's
the carbon footprint of a flight from London to Paris, almost.
Just a bit less than that. So it's about, I've got the numbers written down because I can't remember numbers. STEM counts I can remember, but statistical numbers I'm not so good at. So it was around 31.132 kilograms of carbon dioxide for Kenyan and 32 something for the Dutch. So although the Kenyan one seems to be less, and I know it's hard hearing numbers out loud, and then anyway, so the Kenyan one is slightly less, and I think the flight was something around 50. So it is less than a flight, but it's not significantly less than a flight. And the Kenyan one is less carbon footprint, but that's negated by the fact that it then has to be air freighted and chemical use and that sort of stuff. Whereas an equivalent British bouquet would be, and that's with sort of commercially grown, large scale commercial growers, you're looking at about 3.2, 3.3 kilograms.
Wow, a 10. So,
yeah.
Wow.
And then if you look at a locally grown bouquet using 15 stems of outdoor grown flowers, that had a carbon footprint of 1.71.
Wow.
So it's huge differences. And most people will never have thought about that. I wouldn't have ever done it before I was involved with this. I've always loved flowers, and I've always just grabbed a bunch of flowers when I'm in the supermarket, or even when I was in university. When I was coming home from my Saturday job in university, Birmingham flower market, I'd just grab all the bunches that were left and take them home. Never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Why would it?
Yeah, apologies if you can just hear my phone going off in the background with this very orchestral ring. Yeah, I completely agree with you that I don't think many of us at all would think about the carbon footprint of a bunch of flowers. And I think because it's flowers and we're told that, you know, trees and green things are good and there's biodiversity, and we don't think of it having a positive carbon footprint. Maybe we might think it's carbon neutral because that, you know, it's a flower.
It's growing.
Yeah, definitely. Now, in the same way that we have this concept of fast fashion, so we have you know, clothes that are mass produced cheaply at the detriment to the planet and to the people working in that. Is there almost this sort of fast flower industry?
I was looking into this. There's lots of information from quite a while ago, and so I'm quite reticent to quote too much that's old data because it could have all changed. But there has been information previously that there's been unsavoury practices, people being pressured to not join unions. It's the biggest problem tends to be around the fact that they're using chemicals without proper PPE. We all know the word PPE now, don't we? So without the proper protective equipment or gloves or breathing equipment, and they're either applying these to the flowers as they're growing for pesticides or bloom inhibitors or bloom advancers. So there's all sorts of chemicals used, and a lot of those would be things that wouldn't necessarily be encouraged to be used or may even be banned in the UK. There has been some so that's sort of it's not slave labor type of thing, but it is sort of, it's unsavory working practices really. How well that's been stamped out, I don't know. I couldn't find any evidence, recent evidence. There is definitely more recent evidence that chemicals are still being used on flowers. And somebody, I can't remember the source now, I'm sorry, but somebody was looking at, they'd followed florists during their day, given them gloves to wear for maybe 4 hours, given gloves to non-florists to wear for the same period of time, and then the gloves were tested. And they were tested and they were shown to have chemicals on the gloves. So florists who are working with these imported flowers are potentially absorbing chemicals. So yes, if you buy a bunch of flowers from the supermarket, you probably kept them, stick them in a vase and don't touch them again. So you're probably not going to be absorbing a lot of chemicals. But it's just to make people aware of it and to know that it's going on.
And the fact that you can buy in some of the supermarkets, you can buy fair trade roses, can't you? So that does imply that there are, you know, unethical practices going on in the sort of florist trade. And when I think about, you know, flowers and flower growing, I envisage something that I haven't seen your field, but something that I imagine what your field looks like. You know, a lot of different types of flowers, lots of bees around, lots of biodiversity. You know, hopefully no chemicals being used, all those sorts of things. And I'm guessing, and again, I haven't seen pictures of it, but that when we're talking about flower growing on a very commercial scale, it is just you know, acres of a sort of monocrop.
Monoculture.
And that's not good for biodiversity and things as well, is it?
No, definitely not. And that does tend to be why they need to use more chemicals, because if you've got a single crop and you get any pest or disease in it, it can spread really quickly. I am exactly what you said. I've got loads and loads of different types of flowers growing, all mixed in amongst each other. Sounds a bit haphazard, but they're not. I do grow in lines because it is a crop, not a garden. But they're side by side a totally different type of plant. So the biodiversity is a lot better. I don't use chemicals. I've got Indian runner ducks for my slug protection. They're not that good. They keep eating the plants. But they're better than slug pellets. So I do have organic slug pellets. But even with those, there's some mixed evidence about how good they are actually for the wildlife in the end result. So I do avoid those. I've got them, but since I've had the ducks, I don't use them anyway, just in case they would hurt the ducks, because they're quite characters. They're lovely. But they do tend to eat a few plants, but I've got enough plants to spare. But they have demolished my pumpkins, but apart from that, it's fine.
And talking of ducks, if you can hear the dog barking, that's her barking at our chickens. And she's very excited about the chickens.
Yeah. So I've got cats for the rodent population. So
okay.
So it's trying to keep biodiversity helps me not have to use chemicals. I don't want to use them. My son's now 9, but he comes down to the flower patch with me and has done since he was literally having his naps in the pram at the flower patch. So he's always been down there. So I don't want to use chemicals. I don't want them for me. I don't want them for him. I don't want them for the environment. So. Yeah.
And is there a difference? Like if we say, okay, I've listened to this and I'm going to commit now to just buy British flowers. I'm assuming there's a difference between a business like yours and a very commercial sort of enterprise, because one of the things I'm sort of concerned about, or maybe is that they're saying, oh, these are British flowers, it's fine, but maybe they're grown in like heated polytunnels, and like you say, they're using lots of chemicals and things like that. Like how commercial is the commercial side of British flowers?
So generally, a grower of my size uses pretty much no heat. I've got a propagation mat for seedling starting. A lot of our growers end up using their airing cupboards, or if they've got underfloor heating, they're sort of using something they've already got. Some people have Argas, so their seeds go on the top of the Argas.
Oh, it just sounds so idyllic.
It's not. I don't have an Arga. But even the large-scale growers, there's so little profit in flowers. They're not going to waste energy.
Right.
They may have to use heated glass houses rather than polytunnels, and they will tend to use biomass boilers. So it's as efficient as it possibly can be. There's been some people who have looked into how inefficient the Dutch glass houses are because they're vast. So generally we've lost a lot of our large-scale British growers, unfortunately, but the ones that are still around are growing as economically as they can, which includes not wasting energy, because it's not in their interest to waste energy. Chemical use I don't know about particularly, but it will be regulated, very much more regulated within the UK. You've got to have training to use chemicals on a commercial basis, so it would be very, very much more regulated. But yes, there may be chemical use, because again, if they're growing 1 million stems of sunflowers, it's a lot more difficult to grow, but you're still then supporting. They're often family businesses. People think they're these vast enterprises. One of the growers that I buy from, they're a family business. It's the mum, the dad and the son run it. They had a fire. They have workers there, but they had a fire and it totally devastated them. They were shut down for months. And it is most of the growers I buy from are, even if they're larger scale, they are still family run businesses. It's a fast cry from what you would expect it, even on a larger scale. So I think still supporting British farmers, even if you're buying from a larger scale grower.
Yeah. And is there such a thing as an organic certification for flowers?
Not at the moment. You've got fair trade. There's a lot of talk amongst Flowers from the Farm members of having some sort of standardization and some sort of certificate that we can have to sort of say that we grow following certain practices. And a group within Coventry University are looking at whether we can do that. The difficulty of that is that if you then have that and it costs a lot of money to be registered with it, then when there's very little money in flowers, I'm not doing it to make 1 million, that's for sure, especially with all my weddings cancelled. But it can't be anything that would be too costly for smaller scale growers to grow under. A lot of growers grow with smaller scale growers will grow with organic principles, but they won't go for full organic certification because that is again, expensive, paperwork onerous, and everything else, but they'll still grow with mostly organic principles. I'm ish on the organic principles. I'm using the catchphrase. I'm a bit ish on the organic principles. I do my best. I don't think I would qualify at the moment, because I don't know how long you have to have been working the land to qualify for it. And I do occasionally use some multi-purpose compost that's got peat in it. So because every year I buy some peat-free, and I get such variable results. I've still got to try and unfortunately, it's the one area I'm really a bit gutted about, that I never get as good results with peat-free compost. So if anyone's got any suggestions of amazing peat-free compost, please let me know. I've tried a lot. But it's quite variable, because they're often made with the green waste that the councils collect. So the batch of compost is as variable as the initial product that's gone into it. So that's one of the slight problems with that.
No, that's a good point, actually. So you said that you grow flowers all year round, because again, my assumption is, I want to buy British flowers, but I could only do that like this time of year, midsummer. I'm
not able to grow flowers all year round, but I'm able to source flowers all year round, British flowers. So my growing year finishes at the first frosts, which can be anywhere from the 20th of September through till about Thanksgiving. I had flowers for Thanksgiving one year, because I've got an American customer, so I was able to give her flowers for Thanksgiving. So it's very variable when it ends, but after I don't have flowers, I then use British grown flowers from British specialist wholesalers.
And they will be growing them, like, what's the difference between, why are they able to grow them and you aren't?
It will be down to area. So I buy from a grower and wholesaler down in Cornwall. A grower in West Sussex who specialises in Alstroemeria, and they're better than any imported Alstroes you'd ever find. But he will use heated glass houses. And then wholesaler in Lincoln, and a lot of the larger, there's still a lot of British growers, large-scale British growers in the Lincolnshire area. So they will probably use heated heated glass houses.
And I guess one of the lovely things is that you get to see that seasonality, because it's the same as with buying fruit and veg in season. You get to see that what's available in different seasons. And if you're buying British flowers, you're not going to be, I'm assuming you're not going to be able to get, a massive bouquet of roses at Christmas, but you will get some beautiful blooms that are much more in season.
If you insist on having roses on your Christmas table or roses at Valentine's Day, then you're not going to get them as British flowers. If you are interested in beautiful flowers that have vibrancy and often a lot more scent than imported flowers, then you'll get it through British flowers. You can do some amazing, we're talking about Christmas in June, but you can do some amazing stuff at Christmas with foliage and coloured stems. I grow willows for the coloured stems, and dogwood has coloured stems. You can do some lovely things with those, and just maybe a few flowers. So I can buy Alstroemeria all year round, and I can normally buy narcissi quite early, and sort of into November, December, and tulips, sometimes chrysanthemums. It really depends on what year the growers had, but there are British grown flowers available all year round. I know, because I buy them.
So what do you say if you get someone come to you and it's Valentine's Day and they want roses? They're like, well, I'm afraid there's no roses growing in Britain at the moment. Are people surprised at that?
It sort of depends on who they are. I get a lot of people who find me as a florist just because my SEO is quite good. And they don't care what the flowers are as long as they're pretty. They just want to send flowers. And that's absolutely fine. I'm loving it. No problem. I don't mind that at all. I get other people who buy from me specifically because I'm a British flowers florist. At Valentine's Day, people do have this idea of roses as the only thing. And I have had people say, oh, can I buy a bouquet of roses? And I've said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a British flowers specialist. There's no British roses available. But I can do you a bouquet of this, and this. And they go, oh, that sounds lovely. Because generally, this is slight stereotype, sorry, but if it's a man asking for flowers, they've heard of roses, they've heard of lilies, they might have heard of even carnations. They're just trying to ask for something they've heard of.
Yes.
They're actually just wanting something pretty and beautiful. And I've never yet heard feedback back that somebody was disappointed with my bouquet. I did have someone during lockdown wanting, it was something like 21 yellow roses. So it was obviously for a specific reason. And I said, I'm really sorry, I don't have any yellow roses available at this time of year. If you're set on yellow roses, I'll recommend this florist or this florist. If you will consider other flowers, then please let me know. He didn't come back to me. That's absolutely fine. He wasn't my customer on that particular occasion. That's fine.
And we talked about, fast fashion and maybe this idea of sort of fast flowers. And in the same way that when we're buying British seasonal organic veg, we're paying more, and when we're buying ethically produced clothes, we're paying more. Is it the same that a good British bouquet will cost more than something you could pick up in the supermarket or something you would get from Interflora?
It's sort of like comparing apples with pears.
Yeah.
I'm not the cheapest florist around, but I'm also not the most expensive. I get amazing comments when I deliver my flowers. They're not supermarket flowers. They are beautiful bouquets of vibrant, scented loveliness that do look like I've just gathered from the garden, because I have, but I've then put them together very carefully. It's definitely not the same as grabbing that bunch of 5 roses, 3 lilies, a gypsophila. But I also offer loose stems for people to arrange themselves if they don't want to spend as much. If somebody wants to spend less, they would have to come and pick them up from me. I am a business at the end of the day. I have to be sensible about my timings, and it's not worth my while going out to deliver a bouquet under a certain price point, and I have to just be sensible about that. But in terms of people's response to them, nobody has ever said, oh, that was expensive for what I got. So I'm quite a generous florist, but I don't I've got to be realistic and I can't go and deliver a bouquet for a tenner.
No,
you can get that from the gardens, from the supermarket, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess the point I was sort of trying to make is that I will choose when I can to pay more for organic seasonal veg. I will choose when I can to pay more for. And you said right at the beginning, we have this power in our choices, and flowers are a luxury item. And personally, I would choose to spend more and to buy some flowers from you than or to point my husband in your direction than just going and, like you said, picking up something. It is completely comparing apples and pears. It's not comparing like. And I think the more we can sell this message of quality, seasonality, British, low carbon footprint, that's what we're paying for.
It's very interesting because when I first started, I very much got the they'll be cheaper because you've grown them yourself type response, whereas actually I can go and buy imported flowers a lot cheaper than I can grow British flowers. It's a choice I've made to not go down that route, enforced and backed up and supported by my membership of Flowers from the Farm, definitely, and giving me the confidence to be sort of aware of what I'm doing. But it is just not like grabbing a bunch from the petrol station. It's a totally different experience. I generally, although I'm doing contactless deliveries at the moment because of lockdown, I generally still end up having a conversation with the person receiving the flowers because they're just so overwhelmed when they see them. Like, you've grown these? And it's just a little bit. I mean, one person has given feedback that they were the first flowers she gave to her mum and dad after not seeing them for years. They are not years, the weeks of lockdown. And they were sat outside for the mum and dad's anniversary. And while they were sat outside, the insects were buzzing around and joining the flowers as they were talking, because they're so natural and they've only just been picked and conditioned and arranged. So it would be a lot cheaper for me to just buy imported flowers, but it's the decision I've chosen to make, and it sets me aside as something a little bit different.
Yeah. So you've sold us all now on British flowers, and we're deciding that, you know, the next bouquet we send to somebody is going to be a British bouquet. How do we go about, because, you know, part of the convenience, I guess, of, you know, Interfloral or whoever is that you pick up or you go online and you can order it, and it will be, they will organise a local florist to do it and to deliver it, and that's all kind of done for you. Whereas if I want to buy some flowers for my sister-in-law who's up in the Midlands, do I need to contact a florist in the Midlands, or can I speak to you and you can arrange delivery? Like, how does that work?
So I might have mentioned Flowers from the Farm a few times. So Flowers from the Farm is a nationwide network. We've got just over 800 growers and florists and associated people. That would be the best way to send flowers further away. I deliver within about 12 miles of Uphaven, so I've got quite a small delivery area because I don't want to be driving 20 miles. It's not environmentally friendly for me to do that anyway. So Flowers from the Farm has a map on it. It's called the Find Flowers map, and you can go onto that and put the postcode either of yourself, if you want to find out your local grower, or where you want to send the flowers. Each of our members is a different business. It's an independent business. No two run their business in exactly the same way. Some will have a web shop on their website. Some you'll ring up. Some you'll email. Each one works very differently. Most of them are currently doing bouquets for delivery, even if they don't normally, because obviously we're in a slightly different time at the moment. But they're all independent businesses, but that would be the best way of finding British flowers wherever you are. There are some of those businesses that will do bouquets couriered around the UK, and others will only do local delivery.
Okay, brilliant. So that's Flowers from the Farm. Is it
.co.uk?
Yeah, well done.
Flowersfromthefarm.co.uk.
Oh, well done. You get your brownie points for remembering that. Have you mentioned that you've had weddings cancelled? Have you, like, is there a big surplus at the moment? Have people got sort of gluts of flowers because they've grown assuming that they're going to have this business?
Yeah, I've actually been busier than normal with bouquets for delivery during lockdown, which has been lovely. It doesn't quite equate to, it's a totally different ball game, but it's a lot more smaller work and more admin and more delivery time and all of that sort of stuff. But I've still been very busy, which has been amazing. It's meant I can keep employing the lady who helps me with the work, and I can pay my van fee, my van costs and everything else. So it's kept me afloat, which I'm really, really grateful for. But there will be some growers who were already so far down their sowing production that they do have spare flowers. There will be some who would normally not do local deliveries at all, who have, what's that word, pivoted?
Yes,
I know, one of those catchphrases that's caught on. They've pivoted and they've started doing local deliveries. A lot of our members do very naturally styled funeral flowers rather than Oasis dates. They're very naturally arranged. I do those as well. So what was the question? I've forgotten that.
Having a glut of flowers.
Some people stopped their sowing schedule. Some people carried on. Some people composted plants that had started to grow. It just depends. But a lot of people do have more flowers than they would normally have at this time of year because they haven't got the weddings on.
Yeah.
But we're a resourceful lot. We've generally found ways of using them.
Yeah, no, I bet. And actually, that's what I was going to ask you. Oasis is a big thing, isn't it, in terms of sort of environmental problems? Is there a more eco-friendly? What's the problem with Oasis, and is there a more eco-friendly alternative?
So Oasis is a single-use plastic, which not many people are aware of. It also releases microplastics into the waterways when it's soaked. There is some controversy about whether it contains potentially carcinogenic ingredients. But there's controversy about whether that means that it's potentially carcinogenic. And it's we need to say floral foam, not any particular brand name.
Okay. So Oasis is a brand name, is it?
Oasis is a brand name. Floral foam in general is a byproduct of the petroleum industry. It's phenolic foam. So
sounds much less attractive when you call it that.
Yeah, phenolic foam. Who wants to touch phenol? And it's got formaldehyde in it, and it's got all sorts of things. We don't, in the UK, we don't get hold of the data sheet. It's deemed not to be necessary to send it out, but there are other countries where you can see the data sheet for the foam blocks, and you're advised to use goggles, a breathing mask and gloves, and cut it in a well ventilated area, and avoid inhaling or touching yourself with the dust.
Wow.
So when I heard that, I was like, I don't want to use that stuff. I mean, why? Basically, why do you need? I don't need to use it. I've worked out lots of ways of not using it. There's huge support online now for anyone wanting to look at alternatives. There's Facebook groups set up. There's Instagram hashtags set up. So there's loads of support out there. And since finding out all that about floral foam, I didn't want to use it, let alone the fact that it is definitely a microplastic. Some of those things are still theoretical rather than factual, but it is definitely a microplastic. It is definitely released into the waterways when you soak it. So there's no point. I think it's about 3 years maybe that I haven't used it. Basically, as soon as I found out those things, I was like, don't really want to touch that. And I know I still had it when my son was around, because I remember him pushing at it, and it makes the most funny sound. Apparently there's whole what's that thing called when people like the sounds things make?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there's a whole gamut of people that are scrunching it up to hear that, so that people can hear that sound. And my son used to love poking it and getting it to make the noise. And as soon as I found out all this, I was like, right, get don't want it anywhere near me. So I don't use it. I use structures within vases if I need to. I use vases with water. I use chicken wire, all sorts of things. I've got a whole raft of different things that I use to make sure I don't need it. And once you know you're not going to use it, when you're quoting for a wedding or an event, you just don't offer them the things that would need it.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's
So I can do upright structures without using it. So I'm not going to show them photographs of something that I would need floral foam for. I don't need to use it. I don't want to use it. I've stopped using sellotape. I use paper tape now.
Oh, brilliant.
Which was part of somebody I watched on your Facebook. Facebook group, somebody had said about paper tape, and I was like, why have I never thought of that? So I popped to our local packaging not included shop and tried some sellotape, paper tape, because I was worried that it wouldn't hold it, because sometimes the paper gets a bit wet. I've never had a problem with it. It's been brilliant. So paper tape. And
obviously, traditionally, if we buy flowers from, I say traditionally, but if we buy flowers from the supermarket, whatever, they're wrapped in the cellophane. Have you noticed more and more people asking for sort of plastic-free flowers?
Yeah, I don't use cellophane. I still have a roll of it from when I used to. I've stopped using it probably around the same time as floral foam, if not a bit before. There's no need. I deliver flowers in a cardboard box, which has got then a glass container inside it. I've not had a problem with anyone with that. Often people say, oh, can I have a hand tie? They know the word hand tie. So I say yes. And they say, well, will it be aquapacked? And I say, no, but it will come with water. And they're fine.
Okay.
On a quick phone call when someone's ordering a flowers, I don't necessarily need to go into the whole, I don't use single-use plastic. But sometimes I will say, no, I don't aquapack because that's a single-use plastic. It depends on the conversation. You know, sometimes you can read that they're not going to be bothered about it, and I just don't offer it. I just do it in a glass vase, and that's fine. So, and a lot of the florists that I know and work with and communicate with have done their best to eradicate single-use plastic, or just use it very, very small amounts. And a lot of them now don't use aquapacks; they just use alternatives.
So if we were to get in touch with a local florist and we said, can it be sort of plastic free? We wouldn't get sort of looked at like we were complete weirdos. People would be quite used to that request.
Well, it depends on the florist. If it was a flowers from the farm member, you'd probably be fine.
Right.
But why not ask other florists? Why not have those conversations? What the worst you're going to do is end up feeling a bit, oh, they thought I was really weird asking for that. But unless people ask for those things, people are not going to know that they're wanted.
Yes.
I've just contacted my wholesaler because, you know, when you're doing information for a podcast, you start thinking about things. And I've contacted my wholesaler and said, excuse me, are the boxes I use, the boxes and the paper that I use, I know they're craft, they're not dyed, but are they recycled? Are they FSC? FSC, yeah, that's right. And I'm waiting for replies on that. But unless people start asking those questions, people aren't going to be raising those issues. I've already seen someone said, I never thought about the carbon footprint of flowers. Well, no, you wouldn't do unless I didn't until somebody brought it up to me. I never thought about cellophane on flowers. It always looked lovely, didn't it, when you had a bouquet and it's all pretty and all fluffy with cellophane. But now I don't use it. And nobody has ever said, oh, I wanted it wrapped in cellophane.
Yeah.
So,
no, I think they look so much nicer when you get them, you know, in like brown craft paper or whatever. There's a little florist in Warminster, and she has this little like tuk-tuk van, and she does these little bouquets.
Lindsay.
And they in the Warminster Journal, like the local town paper. So she wraps them in that with string, which is gorgeous.
Yeah, that's Lindsay. She's lovely.
Yes. So if I'm sure this is a question you get asked all the time, but you know, we've been bought a bunch of flowers. How do we keep them going for as long as possible?
Okay, so depending on if they've arrived to you in water or not, cut the bottom of the stems. If they're still in water, you may be able to skip that step, but it's quite a good thing to do. So cut the bottom of the stems, have a very clean vase ready and waiting. You don't need super cold water. Cool water is fine, but make sure the vase is clean to begin with. Pop them into the water and make sure there's no leaves below the water line, because any leaves or debris on the stems will start to decay under the water. Then make sure they're not going to be sitting blasting in the sunshine. You don't want lots of sunshine on them, or drafts either. And keep them away from fruit bowls, because bananas and apples give off ethylene, which can help promote the aging process, so it ages flowers quicker. And likewise, if there's any one or two stems within the bouquet that do fade quicker, then take those out, or just cut them off so that they're gone, so that they're not aging it. Some people say don't put them near televisions, but I don't know if that's more to do with the hazard of water and electricity, or something to do with the electricity field. But a lot of people say don't put them near televisions. But yeah, fruit, heat, and sunshine are the biggest ones. So don't put them in your brilliantly sunny windowsill and expect them to last. And then you really, really should change the water every couple of days. But if you're not going to do that, at least top them up. They do drink a lot. People are often surprised by how much my flowers drink, because although I've conditioned them, they drink the most in their first sort of 24, 48 hours after cutting. So I'll have conditioned them for a while, but then they'll still carry on drinking quite a lot for the first couple of days.
Yeah.
Shows you how fresh they are.
I felt like I'd reached another level of grown-upness when the flowers that my husband had bought, I did actually replace the water. I was like, that's it, I'm a proper grown-up now. The little sachets of flower food that come with, you know, most sort of commercial bouquets, are they necessary, or are they a bit of a...
I don't use flower food. You can if you want to. If you want to, you can make your own. You can use sugar and lemon juice, because it's the sugar feeds the flowers and the lemon juice acidifies the water to stop bacterial growth. But I don't ever use it. I don't give it out. The sachets tend to have chemicals in them as well, so they won't have necessarily lemon juice. They will have an acid of some kind. They often have a preservative of some kind. So I don't use those, but I don't tend to find that people need to use them. if some times of year you get flowers that are a little bit more, they give off a bit more residue. Tulips are sometimes a little bit bad for it, and alliums. So you can put the tiniest drop of bleach in the water if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But again, it's more about reducing bacteria than anything else. But if you change the water, the bacteria don't get a chance to build up.
Yeah.
But when I was first growing and trying things out, I'm in my sunroom at the moment. We've got a skylight thing.
Yeah.
Can't even think. I got all the carbon footprint right, and I can't think of the word. And I used to leave the flowers in this room because this is the hottest, sunniest room, and not change the water. And I would make up bouquets and make up vases of flowers and test them. And that led me to know which ones will last the best.
Oh, brilliant.
But for me, British flowers aren't necessarily about really long-lasting flowers. If you want those, you can buy chrysanthemums that last for 3-4 weeks. Something like a sweet pea will be a very short-lived flower because it's pumping out the essential oils. It's releasing its life force, and that's why you get the scent. So if you've got something giving off all of that scent, it's not going to hang around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's why the supermarket roses will last a lot longer than an English garden rose, because the English garden roses are scented and they're sort of giving off essential oils. Well, they can't stay around, can they?
Yeah.
But it's, for me, the fleeting beauty and the scent and the vibrancy is much more important than it lasting 7 days, 10 days. And I think the stickers on a bouquet of flowers saying guaranteed 10 days life have done a lot of disservice for the joy of flowers. So, you want them to last as long as possible, but you don't want them to last artificially long.
Yeah.
By having been treated with chemicals to make them last longer.
Yeah, definitely. So where can we find out more about British flowers? You've mentioned flowers.
Flowers from the farm. I'm getting my brownie points in. So I did write down a few, and I'll have to read them out because I'll forget. So Sustainable Flowers Coventry, and I think it's .domains. But if you Google Sustainable Flowers Coventry, it should come up. They've got a lot about the sustainable side of flowers. So they've got about the carbon footprint of the Kenyan versus Dutch bouquet. I know somebody was asking, could you share the stats? But I can email those over to you. But they've got a lot about the sustainability of flowers. The British Flowers Week website has got a lot of information about British flowers. You've got hashtags on Instagram, #BritishFlowers. Just be a little bit careful because some people do use that when they're not necessarily always British flowers. But you can't police a hashtag, can you? You know. So those are a couple of different places. If you find you've got a grower near you, having found them on Flowers from the Farm, you can then go to their website. It's been lovely. Loads of the members have actually helped me a lot with the research, and they've put up their blogs so that I can read their blogs.
Oh, brilliant.
And actually there was so much there about sustainability of flowers and carbon footprint and why people do it, and lots of different reasons why people grow British flowers. And there's lots of our members are actually I've forgotten the word, social enterprise. So they will work with people who wouldn't necessarily be able to find a job very easily elsewhere, have educational needs or learning needs that need supporting. So we've got members that actually run their businesses to give employment to people who would struggle otherwise. So that's a great idea as well.
Brilliant. And I'll put all those websites in the show notes for the podcast when the podcast goes out. And where can we find you online? Where can we come and look at your gorgeous flowers?
Okay, so I'm based in Uphaven, and I'm My Flower Patch, and I'm My Flower Patch on everything. Brilliant. So I'm myflowerpatch.co.uk. I'm My Flower Patch on Instagram. I'm My Flower Patch on Facebook, Google My Business, YouTube, Brilliant. Twitter. I think I'm still on Twitter, although I don't use it very much. But yeah, I'm My Flower Patch, and it's generally got my ugly mug somewhere in there so that you can recognise me. But I think I had longer hair and it wasn't quite as curly then.
The only person who has shorter hair in lockdown.
I keep cutting it to try and make it curly.
The final thing I wanted to ask you was, like, is it as idyllic as it sounds? You know, like saying, I grow my own flowers, and I, have this vision of you driving around and delivering these little bundles of joy to people and having these lovely conversations.
Yeah, it's definitely not. We definitely have to battle this idea that I waft around in a straw hat with a beautiful floaty dress, harvesting my flowers into a jug. I don't do that. Firstly, because it's not very good for the flowers, and I'm all about what's best for the flowers. So I never harvest when I can feel the heat of the sun on my neck. So that could mean 7 o'clock in the morning, or it could mean 9 o'clock at night, which to most people isn't that idyllic to start work at that time. And I always harvest straight into water because that's better for the flowers. But I might also be weeding and the rain is pouring and it gets inside your wellies and inside your waterproofs. Or I might be scrubbing buckets when you've got to break the water in the hose because it's frozen. Scrubbing buckets is really not idyllic at any time of the year. So no, it's not idyllic, but it's a lifestyle choice I've made that I want to do this. It is a wonderful job to do. It does. My son during lockdown has obviously had to come on some deliveries with me, and we went someplace and he walked up and I delivered and stepped back and he sort of looked at their face and as we were walking back to the car, he went, "Mummy, it's really good fun delivering your flowers. People love them." And that is amazing, getting the conversations that you get when you deliver something beautiful. And even when it's for funeral flowers and people take the time to write a thank you note, they've got enough on their plate and they bother to write and thank me for doing funeral flowers. And so that is amazing. But planting out the flowers when it's hot and trying to water them when it's 30 degrees. And there's some elements that aren't quite so idyllic, but it is wonderful. And being around the birds and the bees and the butterflies and the everything else, it's great. And I've got a lot of biodiversity on the plot. So
yes, I bet.
It is good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for, growing British flowers, for championing British flowers and for coming to talk to us today, because that's been absolutely fascinating. It's a real eye-opener, and I think it's something that we need to start sort of shouting about a bit more. So hopefully this will help a little bit. But thank you so much.
I might get on my soapbox occasionally.
That's good. We like a soapbox.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Perfect. So we've got a couple of questions. Jenny actually just disappeared, but she can watch this on the replay. I love orchids and have about 20 at home. Is it possible to buy British grown orchids?
I can't see that question.
That's because there's a little separate question box.
In the different box.
Yeah.
I have a feeling there is a British orchid grower, but I don't know. Is the person who asked the question on your Facebook group?
Yes, and I can. She's in my 6-week course as well, so I can get into it.
I will find out and I will get back to you. They won't be easy to find. Sometimes the producers are getting better at labelling with a British flag when it is British, because they obviously are realising that there must be some appetite for British grown. But I have a feeling there is a British orchid grower, but I can't think off the top of my head. But I'll make a note and I'll get back to you on it.
Brilliant, thank you.
I have grown orchids for a long time, but I seem to have killed them all now.
No! We found some. We found 2 different types of orchid out on lockdown walks.
Yes,
which is really nice. That you just wouldn't. Like, one was up by the tank road on the army range. You just wouldn't, not a place you would expect to see sort of wildflowers and things like that. But really lovely.
We're very lucky with the Salisbury Plain because it is quite undisturbed. We get a lot of really great wildflowers there because it's not churned over and no chemicals. But there've been lots of people reporting during lockdown that they've seen more biodiversity than normal because, for example, the councils weren't cutting the grasses. Business properties haven't bothered cutting their lawns and grasses because they haven't had visitors. And I did see one person had put up, I think he was a law firm, and he had put up a photo of all of his orchids on the front that he's never even known were there because they've always just mowed it to within an inch of its life because the visitors coming.
Wow. So, wouldn't you rather visit a law firm that had orchids and wildflowers out the front?
Beautiful pyramidal orchids. They're fabulous. Absolutely beautiful.
And then the other question was from Jo, but I think she's just said that we've kind of already answered it. Do organic British blooms last as long in the vase? And we were talking about that, weren't we? That the sort of shelf life is less because of the lack of chemicals and all that.
Some do, some don't. I definitely will use some flowers in a bouquet for delivery rather than some flowers that I would only use for weddings, because for a wedding or an event, you want amazing, beautiful impact, but it doesn't have to last a long time. And there are some flowers that I wouldn't use in a delivery bouquet because they don't have as long a vase life. But there will, in a bouquet that I do, I will always include some long-lasting elements. Even if there are some sweet peas in there, they'll be cut on the vine so that they last longer anyway. And I don't tend to put garden roses in a bouquet because people expect it to last a bit longer. But that's part of having researched and tested and tried things out to know at what stage to cut which flowers for the best vase life. So I'm always striving for best vase life or a delivery bouquet or an arrangement. Whereas for a wedding, I'll want big impact straight away.
Brilliant. If anyone else
think they don't last. I don't want anyone to get the impression that they don't last. They do last.
Do you encourage people, just quick, if anyone else has got any questions, just pop them in the chat box now or pop them in. But like, do you encourage people after weddings to do something else with the flowers? Because, and same with funerals as well. Like with my dad's funeral, I was like, I really don't want flowers. It just seems such a waste for them to go on the coffin. But
so I've designed funeral flowers knowing that somebody wants to then display them at the wake. So I've designed a sheaf that would lie flat on the coffin, but then it's got a base on it so that you can then prop it up and have it displayed as part of the wake. And that was a suggestion I made. Very often so part of the wedding package is that people own all of the flowers that I've done. They don't own all of the props. But I'm quite happy to let them have the props for a while and enjoy the flowers. And the flowers are there for them to take home and enjoy. I often get told that they're surprised how long they last. So they sort of count as that idea that they don't last. Even for events, people often say, gosh, I didn't expect them to have lasted. And especially if they've been in a hot marquee, but they'll still last. I've also done an event where she wanted the larger arrangements made up into bouquets to be given away. So I've done that. There's a big charity in London called Floral Angels, and they're very involved with going in after large events, large weddings, and repurposing the flowers.
Because when you think about, I guess if there's like a conference or something like that, and they want flowers there for maybe even a day event, and then it just seems so wrong that these flowers are then just.
I've always encouraged my customers, for event customers, to reuse their flowers afterwards. Some will specifically ask for something that they can take it away in. Otherwise, I have that discussion as part of a wedding consultation anyway. Do you want to keep the flowers? But some of them are going away straight away. Parents can take them. But I say, I've spent all this time growing them, then arranging them. I don't want you to just walk away and leave them. Please enjoy them. People love them afterwards and enjoy them. So I'm always encouraging people to make the best use of their flowers.
When you put all that time and effort into it.
They're my babies. I don't want them thrown away the next day. I want them used and enjoyed. Definitely.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Sara. It's been absolutely fascinating. And I really hope we sort of, in a nice way, blow some people's minds with some of these stats and things like that. Tamza says, our weeding florist, I'm assuming you mean your wedding florist, helped us choose plants and trees as part of the arrangements you could give as gifts. So how lovely. And in the garden afterwards.
That's really lovely. We quite often end up doing, if somebody wants a favour to give away, we'll do small... didn't spell check. Do you know the amount of times I end up putting weeding in a wedding consultation email? And because they don't spell check on wedding and weeding. But we've done small herb plants to then be given away, so they form part of the table decoration, but then they're given away rather than, I don't know, something random. That people don't necessarily want. But a lot of people end up doing sort of flower seeds or that sort of thing as a favour, which is quite nice. But yes, it's lovely when you can use something that's living. The royal wedding name.
Harry's?
No, the other one. No, the other one.
Oh,
William and Kate. Sorry, totally gone.
You were sent to the tower.
Sorry?
We sent to the tower for not remembering that.
I know, dreadful. Shane Connolly did their wedding, and everything was either reused, replanted, dug from Palace Gardens. I mean, they've got a little bit more to choose from, really, don't they? But he's an amazing florist and very into sustainable floristry and eco-floristry.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did a lot. They had whole trees lining the aisle, so that they could then be taken away and replanted.
Oh.
Yeah, there's lots of us doing it. But Shane Connolly's a bit more famous. But he's very lovely. If you ask him questions, he's so lovely. He'll just answer things. He's really good.
Oh, you'll be doing the next, you know, Charlotte's or George's.
No, thanks. I did Chelsea a couple of years ago as part of Flowers from the Farm, and that was plenty enough. Oh,
I can't imagine the pressure of having to have something exactly at its peak at exactly the right, like that would just, no thanks. I couldn't do that.
Well, we had flowers from 94 different growers.
Wow. From
the Isles of Scilly up to Inverness, delivered into London via 13 different hubs that I set up on the day of Harry and Meghan's wedding, because I didn't get to see any of it, and the FA Cup final, and it was a heat wave, and we got them all into London and then over to the Chelsea showground and arranged them. But we got a gold, so it was all worth it.
Oh, amazing. Brilliant. I'll pop all these links onto the podcast.
Yeah, I'll send you some links over.
When it goes up. Brilliant, thank you. And I'll definitely be touting that carbon footprint statistic around to make people think.
Yeah, so I hope I got it right now. I copied it down.
I'm sure it is. It's amazing. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Sarah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks
Bye.
So much. Bye.